goal line. That's going to be a foul on Caitlin Clark.
5 fouls, 21 minutes, and just 1 first-half point. Those numbers became the focus of Caitlin Clark's night in Portland, but many viewers believe they failed to tell the full story. A closer look at the footage and play-by-play reveals a game shaped as much by officiating and coaching decisions as by on-court performance. The controversy centers not only on the calls Clark received but also on the perception that Indiana head coach Stephanie White did little to challenge what was unfolding. As debate continues, fans remain divided over who deserves more responsibility for the outcome. As the game progressed, criticism of the officiating grew louder. Portland's defensive strategy revolved around applying constant physical pressure to Clark, using body contact, hand checks, and aggressive positioning to disrupt her rhythm. Many observers
Caitlin Clark, if anything, she got elbowed. There's Caitlin Clark's first foul. Somebody tell me where's the foul? There was 2.
argue that similar contact is frequently penalized elsewhere in the league, yet on this night the whistles remained silent. Portland's defenders were allowed to play an especially physical style, and critics contend that the lack of calls gave them added freedom to execute that approach throughout the game. The discussion became even more intense when comparing Clark's fouls to the contact she absorbed on the other end. Several of the whistles against her drew immediate questions from viewers, who struggled to identify clear infractions on replay. Her first foul was heavily debated, while her third generated even greater scrutiny. After the game, Clark maintained that she had maintained legal defensive position, and many who reviewed the footage agreed that the calls were difficult to justify based on the available angles.
It's a tough board. Hustles ahead down the floor. Barker running the wing. Barker to the cup. Up and under. Knocked to the floor. And this will be a foul.
Beyond the individual calls, the timing of the fouls became a major talking point. Clark's foul trouble seemed to arrive at critical moments when she was beginning to settle into the game and Indiana's offense was gaining momentum. Each whistle interrupted that rhythm, forcing adjustments and limiting her ability to stay consistently involved. Supporters argue that those interruptions played a significant role in shaping both her night and the overall flow of the game. Portland
wants to move Enxler out of there. On the wing, kicks it over. Enxler inside. Gustafson catch and foul.
I tell you what, it's good that they're not living by the 3, dying by the 3.
Late. Carries it through and that foul. Whistled late.
Portland's offensive success was driven in part by Carla Leighty's impressive performance, which included 18 points and 12 assists. While her skill and decision-making were undeniable, critics argue that the physical style permitted throughout the game helped Portland maintain an advantage. As the contest unfolded, the visitors appeared increasingly comfortable attacking Clark and testing the boundaries of the officiating, confident that the game would continue to be called the same way. When all the pieces are put together, many viewers see a game that consistently tilted in one direction. Portland
have settled in offensively late. How about the all-wheel drive?
She is so quick, just a little hesitation, attacks the hip of Clark, and then most of
Portland's defenders were able to play aggressively from start to finish, while Clark accumulated 5 fouls and was limited to 6 points on 1-4-7 shooting in only 21 minutes. Supporters argue that those numbers reflect more than just a difficult shooting night and instead point to a game environment that restricted her impact. The frustration only intensified because Indiana never formally challenged any of the disputed moments during the game. Stephanie White's substitution decisions became another major source of criticism. Clark opened the game with 3 assists in the first few minutes, Boston scored quickly inside, and Indiana jumped out to an 8-2 lead with its offense operating efficiently. Despite that strong start, both players were removed from the floor while the team still had momentum. Critics argue that there was no obvious reason to break up a lineup that was producing results, making the timing of the move especially controversial. The impact of those substitutions was immediate. After Clark and Boston went to the bench, Portland responded with a decisive 13-2 run that completely shifted control of the game.
One fast break. Caitlin Clark, she can't play defense, they call foul every time. So the girl throws an elbow at her. Caitlin Clark, if it was her, it would have been a charge. I guarantee you that.
The Fever struggled to match Portland's pace and ball movement during that stretch, and by the time Clark and Boston returned, Indiana's early lead had vanished. The team never regained the advantage, Making that sequence one of the defining moments of the night. Following the game, White explained that the substitutions followed the team's normal rotation pattern and were influenced by Boston's minutes restriction. While few disputed the need to manage Boston's workload, critics questioned whether the timing needed to be so rigid. They argued that managing minutes and maximizing momentum are not mutually exclusive, especially when a team is in the middle of one of its best stretches of basketball. White's explanation did little to quiet those concerns. The 13-2 run was viewed by many as more than just a bench unit issue. Critics believe it stemmed from removing the two players most responsible for Indiana's early offensive success at the exact moment Portland was struggling to contain them. The fact that four Fever players eventually reached double figures only added complexity to the discussion, suggesting the roster had enough talent to compete despite the final margin.
Stephanie White has got to go. This relationship is over. She crashed out and benched Caitlin Clark throughout the game. That is why Caitlin Clark was out of it. This is nasty. The owner needs to step in and fire this goofball, this freaking clown of a coach. See, she's a joke.
Indiana received strong contributions from several players throughout the night. Aaliyah Boston scored 18 points and earned 9 free throw attempts, Kelsey Mitchell added 17, Sophie Cunningham finished with 15, and Timpson provided 11 points in limited minutes. Those performances demonstrated that the Fever had productive offensive pieces across the roster, and supporters argue that those efforts should not be overlooked when evaluating the game as a whole. Clark's final line of 6 points on 1-4-7 shooting looked disappointing on paper, but many believe it lacked important context. She spent much of the game managing foul trouble while facing a defense designed specifically to limit her impact. Portland
had 3 assists in the first 3 minutes of the game, then both her and Aaliyah checked out, I think, around the 6:30 mark. Then Portland went on a 13-2 run. Just what was the reasoning for checking them out, or did they either of them request a sub?
Well, AB's still on a minutes restriction, so she's coming out. And typically that's around the same time that we've been taking Caitlin out before. We didn't in Golden State just because, quite honestly, we didn't Raven in that environment without another ball handler on the floor. So that's been our typical substitution pattern.
Switched aggressively and forced her into difficult decisions, often leaving her caught between attacking through contact and pulling back to avoid additional fouls. The result was a night where her usual offensive aggressiveness was difficult to maintain. Even with those challenges, Clark still finished with 6 assists and only 1 turnover. Those numbers suggest she continued making effective reads and creating opportunities for teammates despite the difficult circumstances. While her scoring never developed, her playmaking remained evident, reflecting the influence she can have on a game even when she is not filling up the scoreboard. Portland capitalized on Indiana's defensive struggles throughout the night. Megan Gustafson delivered a flawless shooting performance, scoring 22 points without a miss, while Carla Leite controlled the offense with 18 points and 12 assists. Additional contributions from Angler and Bridget Carlton helped Portland place 5 players in double figures. Critics argue that Indiana's defensive coverages never adjusted effectively, allowing Portland to repeatedly find favorable matchups and scoring opportunities. Combined with Indiana's poor three-point shooting, those defensive issues played a major role in the final result.
I guess you guys started on the 8-2 run, and then after Portland took timeout to kind of flip the script. Just what changed either on their end or on your end?
I just thought they were the hungrier team. I thought that they played with a relentless, effort, a relentless pursuit to get to what they wanted, to be disruptive on defense, to get to their spots on offense. I thought their competitive spirit was better than ours.
Another source of frustration for observers was White's decision not to challenge any of the disputed calls. As Clark's foul count increased and her minutes diminished, many questioned whether more could have been done from the sideline. Coaching involves more than managing rotations and designing plays. It also includes advocating for players and responding when officiating becomes a major storyline. Critics felt Indiana failed to do that during this game.
Hold the board. Clark eyes down the floor. Up ahead, Boston. Great catch. The vision from Clark and Boston to the rim, and Indiana sprints out to an 8-2 lead.
Tension between Clark and White became a separate talking point after footage surfaced showing a visible disagreement on the sideline. The exchange fueled speculation about frustration within the team and prompted debate about the coach-player relationship. Some critics argued that Clark receives a disproportionate share of public criticism for defensive mistakes, while others defended White's efforts to hold all players accountable. Regardless of perspective, the interaction quickly became one of the most discussed moments from the game. Clark's post-game comments added another layer to the discussion.
Clark in the paint. Retrieves the dribble. Mitchell, what a cut! What a delivery from Clark!
It's a little.
Rather than focusing on officiating, she suggested that the issues affecting Indiana ran deeper than the whistles. Meanwhile, White described Portland as the more competitive and determined team, comments that some fans interpreted as indirect criticism of her players. Because she did not specifically address several of the coaching decisions being questioned, the reaction from supporters was overwhelmingly skeptical.
See the season high for the rookie. Gustafson will let it fly from the corner. Oh, it is good! The fourth foul on that last possession, so the foul trouble piling up for Indiana. Excellent. Inside, Gustafson, the flipper, and you can't.
Since I was about 10 years old playing against her in AAU.
Late draws two, flips it up, Gustafson! Gustafson will set the screen late. Over to Gustafson, Gustafson inside, Clark defending, Gustafson, Barker at the top, Gustafson down low, you already know!
Questions about accountability dominated the aftermath of the loss. Fans pointed to Clark's limited playing time, the early substitutions, the defensive adjustments that never materialized, and the tense sideline moments as evidence of larger problems. While the debate over officiating remained active, many supporters focused just as heavily on coaching decisions and whether the team was being put in the best position to succeed. As a result, calls for change within the organization only grew louder. Despite the loss, some observers believe the game also highlighted the long-term potential of Indiana's core. Clark finished with 6 assists and only 1 turnover despite extensive foul trouble, while Boston, Mitchell, Cunningham, and Timpson all made meaningful contributions. Supporters argue that those performances show what the roster could become under more favorable circumstances. Looking ahead, many see Clark's playmaking, leadership, and ability to influence games as key reasons she remains central to future MVP conversations. At the same time, ongoing questions about coaching, roster management, and organizational direction continue to shape discussion around the Fever's future.
Get her out of here. And Caitlin Clark addressed it and let it be known that her problem wasn't the fouls, it wasn't the refs, her problem was Stephanie White. Caitlin Clark come out and let it be known. Let's go, man. This is crazy. I can't believe Stephanie White got some nerve like she's some championship coach to be talking to Caitlin Clark. Get her out of here, bro. Get her out of here. Caitlin Clark said it. The refs what? Caitlin Clark had 5 fouls. Normally, she talked greasy about the refs. She let it be known. The refs wasn't my problem. I had no problems with the refs. You know who my problem was. It's this clown Stephanie White. Talking to Caitlin Clark like this, snatching her out of the game, throwing the clipboard down. Who the f do you think you are? You are a bum. You are a bum. You are a piece of garbage of a coach, man. This is crazy, man. Caitlin Clark has got to get out of Indiana. Caitlin Clark has to get out of Indiana immediately, bro. I don't care how she got to do it.